Money FM 89.3, the best of Saturday mornings. Singapore Home Brew on Money FM 89.3.
1942, as Neil mentioned, the Japanese came across from the Malaysia Peninsula into Singapore and started Singapore's entrance into World War II. Underneath Fort Siloso over in Sentosa, there's the guns, of course, military barracks, observation posts, but there's also an underground network of tunnels that were constructed to shelter the British soldiers and store ammunition, etc. during World War II. Now there is an exclusive Twilight tour of Fort Siloso. Here to tell us about that, Satha Logaraj is the manager of the International and Museum Relations at the National Heritage Board, and Saifullah Kamaludin, the Deputy Manager, Recreational Nodes Unit, Environmental Management Division of the Sentosa Development Corp. The longest title, you should see his business card is actually 4 business cards strung together.
Yeah.
But anyway, just kidding there. But gentlemen, welcome. Thank you for coming on today and to talk about a really, really interesting thing that's happening over at Sentosa.
Good morning. Thank you for having us today. Yeah.
Saifullah, you need to clear your voice, my friend. You're going to be doing this every night for the next 2 weeks.
Yeah, I mean, today's the first day. So,
All right, let's kick off with you. Give us an overview. I did it with you earlier in the week. Fabulous. Give us an overview of what this tour is and what visitors will see.
Yeah, so this Fort Siloso Twilight tour, it's about 1.5 hours. You get to experience the after hours of how Fort Siloso is like. It's a whole different vibe at night, especially when you go through the different locations and sites. And along the way, you'll see some of the interesting stories, war stories especially, of what really happened during the battle for Singapore. We've heard a lot about what happened during 8 February to 15 February, the days leading to the fall of Singapore. But I think with the site where the only preserved fort left in Singapore, it is a place where it's better interpret when you are on site with a guide like myself to take you through, and that feeling when you walk during the battle condition, because it's happening from 6 p.m. to about sunset. It's a feeling that is different when you get to learn history in a different light.
Yeah.
So I think some sites that you'll be able to see, like what Glenn, you mentioned earlier, the defensive structures, like the underground tunnel complexes, the functionality of it, and the importance. I think the stress is more of how it feels like being in the soldiers' shoes, being there, being disconnected, because Sentosa is off the mainland, and you are just looking at all the chaos that's
especially those days, no bridges, you had to take a boat back and forth to get to the mainland.
Everything it's in chaos during that fall of Singapore.
And just add to that, because you do give us a very good sense, a sensorial approach to it, what it was like during those final days, because it was the lack of communication, the darkness, the inability to contact different soldiers around the island and persevere with the battle box, and give us a sense of that chaos in the final hours leading up to the fall of Singapore.
Yeah, so I think what's interesting about the tour is we stress a lot about the emotions that the soldiers might have felt at that time. At different point, for example, if you look across from where Sentosa is, you'll be able to see Pasir Panjang or Labrador Park today. You can imagine the fall of Singapore, that final few days where the Malay regiment, the Battle of Bukit Chandu, it was happening.
Very storied battle in Singapore.
And they can see it, they can hear it.
Yeah. So it's something that, if you're a soldier there, right there at Fort Siloso, you'll be wondering like what's going on. And information will pass down. News will arrive like slightly later, because everything's in chaos. So by the time the headquarters from the battle box, when the message arrived at Fort Siloso, it'll be like days later. So if you imagine the soldiers going to the underground tunnel, I'm sure you've heard about the oil lamps that's going around on the news. So the oil lamps really to navigate around the tunnels undetected by enemy planes. Now those are something that you can imagine the panic the anxiety that the soldiers might feel at the time, going through the tunnel, staying hidden, but at the same time not being sighted by the Japanese planes.
Wow.
There's so many things going on.
Yeah, let's bring in Satha Logaraj. The NHB does such a great job, has done over the decades, and is continuing to, about really trying to keep this war history alive. Where does this Twilight tour at Fort Siloso fit into that plan?
Oh, thanks, Glenn, for that. The Twilight tour really fits into the broader program. It's our signature program for this year, and also because, as Saifullah mentioned, it was a key site, a key area during World War II that played a very significant part in the war, in the fall of Singapore. And so I think we felt it was very important to commemorate that. And as Saifullah mentioned, the experience to educate and to let participants understand what went down, what went through the minds and the feelings and the emotions of the people who were on the ground. So I guess on
the ground and underground.
Yes, on the ground and underground, in the tunnel. So as NHB, we're the custodians of heritage in Singapore. It's an important message for us to, educate and let the public know, to commemorate a big event in our history, and to also understand, the importance of recognizing it, and I guess just being there and being able to experience that and saying, let's not take things for granted, let's remember those men and women who were there on the ground and who set up what we have now and what we enjoy today, the sacrifices they made. So this is part of our entire slate of programs where we hope to send this message out and for people to ask questions, to experience what life during the fall of Singapore was like.
Saifullah, let's bring you back in. You're based in Sentosa, and I think you oversee what you call the free attractions in Sentosa, like Fort Siloso. So when you're organising something like this with NHB, I'm fascinated. How do you decide what goes into the tour? What do you talk about? What do you leave in? What do you take out? How do you decide how to put your tour package together?
Yeah, I think it's how we look at the historical sites on Sentosa. I think one from the way I curate those kind of tours, I look at the different historical sites and the opportunities that we can present it in a different light, rather than just just a physical architecture or structure by itself. Because stories really move people. Stories tells a different light, and there are different stories that you can share during your tours. So I really want that as a important factor when I conduct my tours. And when I share and pitch this to National Heritage Board, I think it's something that we feel that this tour has the potential to literally share more about the fall of Singapore, and given the site, because Fort Siloso is Singapore's 74th national monument. And did you know today is actually the day it was gazetted, in 2022 on 15 February. So why don't we to commemorate the place and remember the fallen?
Yeah. We're in conversation with Saifullah Kamaludin, the Deputy Manager of Recreational Nodes at Sentosa Development Corp, and Satha Logaraj, the Manager for International Museum Relations at the National Heritage Board. Satha, back to you. What are some of the highlights, do you feel like, for this particular tour that's happening at Fort Siloso? Saifullah talked to us a little bit earlier about what can be expected. What did you like from the NHB perspective?
Right. I think for me, touching on personally and also from the NHB perspective, the stories and the emotions that really go into the tour. So it's not like just walking around and having a look at the big guns and having a look at Fort Siloso, but really feeling the emotions that our tour guides will touch on, and the stories. That is an extremely compelling time and area to be in. Personally, looking out at was Bukit Chandu, right, Saifullah?
Yes.
When we're standing out, and when you mentioned, you can see the smoke, you can see the fire, it takes us back in time, 80 plus years ago, to kind of imagine and visualize, oh wow, all this pretty greenery, all these pretty houses in front of us, the entire Keppel Bay area that we see today was a war zone,
Yeah.
And really just drive that point. Let's not take this for granted.
And
Let's
I think
remember.
they would have been able to really see that from the top of Fort Siloso, right?
Yeah.
They would see across the water,
Absolutely.
across Keppel Bay, and they would see the bombing, the burning, everything that was happening, not very far away, up in that Pasir Panjang area, right?
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah, it would have been would have been scary, really scary.
Absolutely. That was a key part I wanted to praise you for, Saifullah, and whoever came up with that, because that was the most visceral, memorable part, because the close proximity to Fort Siloso, you can almost feel the terror, the lack of communication, but it's just there. They can see the bombing, they can see the fires. It's just across Labrador Park. It isn't that far at all.
Yeah.
They don't know what's coming. They don't know the numbers. They don't know the size of the invasion. There's communication chaos. It's brilliantly done. But what you also do, and I want you to share this with our listeners on this historic day, dispel the myth again,
Sure.
once and for all.
I know what you're going to say.
As you mentioned on the tour, it's become a running gag, but it's not that funny because it almost does a disservice to the brave men of World War II. Tell us about the cannons. They were not in the wrong place, were they?
No, of course not. So, Glenn, what do you think? Were the guns facing the wrong way?
So, I don't want to do a spoiler alert, but I know that the guns were able to turn around.
Yeah.
But there was another problem that they faced.
Yeah, that's right.
You want to fill us in?
Yeah, so
You're
I
the
think
expert.
there's a famous myth that's been going for generations since the fall of Singapore, with the guns facing the wrong way.
Only facing out to sea.
Facing out towards the sea. So these guns, they were designed to fire at naval coastal ships at sea. That was the primary objective. But because of the what's going on during the fall of Singapore, there is a need for defense up at the north, where when the Japanese were coming down, because of it's not by sea but they're coming from the north. Hence the guns, the only logically ways to rotate it and fire landwards. But the guns at the time was electrically operated, and there were cables connected to the generators, so they had to disconnect the cables to turn the gun because of the cables were too short.
The logistics of it.
So when the guns were turned, they couldn't operate electrically. So you have to operate it manually. So everything was done with labor intensive by the soldiers at that time. So you can imagine that few days leading to the fall of Singapore, with no electric supply, and you have to work in such of a condition. It was a arduous task for the soldiers.
Can I also mention one other thing that I've read, and please correct me if I'm wrong, that also the munitions they were using were wrong. The munitions were meant to sink ships and not disperse. So they would fire them back towards Singapore, but it was like an armor-piercing thing. It wasn't a broad explosive charge that they would have needed to fight ground troops, for example. So the munitions were actually the wrong kind. Is that true?
Again, the key thing is it's not wrong. It is right, because the guns were designed to fire at sea towards ships.
Exactly.
And armor-piercing shells are actually used to penetrate ships.
Right.
So when it penetrates ships, it disables the whole ship's compartment.
Right.
So that's the role of the fort.
Yeah.
But because of the turn of events that happened during the fall of Singapore, when they rotated, they only had armor-piercing shells.
Yeah, it was a different kind of warfare.
So some shells, when it landed in Singapore at that time, it was a war zone, and there were swarms everywhere. Instead of penetrating or blasting at soldiers, it goes dive deep underground. Right. So years later, during construction, when you hear about news, hey, ammunition found, armor-piercing shells. Yeah. There you go.
Yeah. All right. We're gonna have to leave it there today, guys. But really fascinating talk. Thank you for being with us. Thank you for talking. Everyone can get out and go to Fort Siloso and see this.
They can visit Fort Siloso during the day, the Twilight tour. But I think last I know, Satha, you want to share?
Yeah, and we also have a series of other events related to the battle for Singapore. Over 25 events to suit whatever you would like to attend to see. We have the talks. Just to mention that our Fort Siloso tours have been sold out, but there's still other programs that we have. So we have over 20 programs and over 70 runs of these programs over the next 3 weekends and the 3 weeks. So we have talks, the role that sport played in the Japanese occupation of Singapore. There's also a specially guided tour at the Mint Museum of Toys. So get this, like you can learn about World War II history through toys, you know.
Wow.
So,
how do they do that?
yeah, so it'll be a specially curated tour with attention to very specific memorabilia and toys dating to that period. So yeah, so there's plenty to learn. There's also there are talks, there are guided tours. There's also a special access tour to Tengah Air Base. So that's actually happening today, and there are a few more iterations over the next few weeks. So it's an opportunity, and there's still tickets for this guy. So if you would like to come on board, go and check out museums.com.sg for more details. Yeah.
That would be fun because Tengah Air Base is not ordinarily open to the public,
Yeah, it's a
obviously. So this
restricted
is a very rare opportunity for
it's up in
Singaporeans
the northwest, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Very, very far away.
I think they use it for helicopters mostly, things like that. Yeah,
And it's a massive airbase, and being able to get access to it, thanks to our partners, we're very grateful. And
awesome.
We hope everyone has a good time and learns and comes out with that enriching experience.
Fantastic. Saifullah, we'll give the final word to you. You do these tours to many generations. What do you feel is the most positive takeaway that the guests, the visitors get when they follow you around these tours?
Yeah, I think essentially during the tours, with all the storytelling and information that's been shared with them across the generation, I think we could agree that the reflection is something that's important. The things that we have gone through during the fall of Singapore remind us that not to take peace, our security and safety for granted. And towards the end, for the Twilight tour, you'll be ended off with a nice view of the skywalk, the scenic view. It really gives you a breathtaking view where they've been through so much, and I think Singaporeans have gone through those tough times, the adversity, and we managed to stay resilient during these days.
Yeah.
Can I just add that when you finish the tour, you finish it on the skywalk, you might want to add that if you say, and if you look to your right, this is where Glenn Van Zutphen got married. Because he mentions it every single time we go there, yes.
My solemnization ceremony was up right next to the, across next to where the cable car is.
I see.
Right? On the other side. But then our civil service was at the Rasa Sentosa.
Yeah, the guns weren't facing that way.
The guns went off that day.
He's still waiting for his Sentosa plaque. So if you could, Glenn got married here plaque. Yeah.
Guys, thank you very much for being with us. Satha Logaraj, the manager at the National Heritage Board, and Saifullah Kamaludin from the Sentosa Development Corp. We encourage everybody to get out there and support not only our heritage, but also this important moment in Singapore history. Thanks for being with us.
Thank you for having us. Yeah.
To listen to more great interviews, download our podcasts at audio.sg or download the audio app. That's AWEDIO, audio at the App Store and Google Play.